Welcome into another edition of the In the Money podcast for KeenelandSelect.com. Tom Leach, along with Keeneland's Director of Simulcasting, Jim Goodman, alongside. And we are doing an extra podcast this week because of the big card they have at Woodbine on Sunday. This is the day that we were supposed to see the return of Wise Dan. He had been training spectacularly at Keeneland, but came up with a tendon issue, and they have decided to retire him after a wonderful career. So we won't see him in the Woodbine Mile, but we do have that race and several others to talk about. So, Jim, let's jump right in. In the third race on the card is the Grade 3 Bold Venture, 3-year-olds and up going 6.5 furlongs. Calgary Cat's the even money favorite in here. I tried to beat him with Essence Hitman just to try to beat the favorite. It's second off a real long layoff, and he's had two bullet work since then for Essence Hitman. But it's really not a great betting race. If you want to try to beat him, I think that's the one. But I'd use Essence Hitman with Calgary Cat and Spite Song if you want to play exactas. What about you?
Yeah, this one's not a great betting race because I think it's a two-horse race with Essence Hitman and Calgary Cat. And you can make a case for Essence Hitman being of value because he came in off a almost two-year layoff, and ran well in the Ontario. So got beat by 2 3/4, gave it up down the stretch to Calgary Cat. Making up 3 lengths is probably not an impossible task with this horse because he's got a lot of black back class. So I would go with Essence Hitman simply because you're probably going to get 2-1 or 5-2 instead of 4-5. So two horse exacta box. So I really can't see anybody else in the race being competitive.
The next graded stake on their card is the 6th. It's a Grade 1, the Northern Dancer, 1.5 miles on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. Much better wagering opportunity here. How'd you see this one?
Oh, this one's a nice wagering opportunity. I love Triple Threat, the one horse in the Arlington Million, and he went off at 5-1, and I'm just guessing that he hated the yielding turf. If you remember on Arlington Million Day, they had a deluge right before the Million or 2 races before the Million. I thought they'd take it off, and they didn't, and it was a pretty wet track, and I'm just going to think Triple Threat, you can throw that out completely. Off that Monmouth win, 2 back with a 99 buyer, and the form that he showed over in France in 2013. There's a lot of class here. So I like Triple Threat here, but I'm not going to single him. I'm going to use Amy's Holiday, the 4, 1-for-1 on Woodbine turf at this distance last year. And then Lucky Speed, the 5, may wind up being the favorite here. 102 buyer last out, won the American St. Ledger, which was the race that went off before the deluge. That's a old Jackson Brown song for those of you older people in the audience. And Group 1 win in Germany, and I think Lucky Speed is probably the horse that's best in form right now. I'd also give a shot to the 8 Glenard because of Grand Motion. So, nice betting race, but Triple Threat would be my top choice, but I don't think you can throw out Amy's Holiday or Lucky Speed.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same route, and just throw out the Million. It's Mott and Team Valor and Gary Barber, so especially Barber's a Canadian, so, with those connections, I don't think they would have put him in this spot if they thought there was certainly, that he couldn't run back to that performance in Monmouth. And if he does, like you said, he's right there. I think that previous race is good enough. So I'm on most of the same ones. I'd use him with Amy's Holiday, with Lucky Speed. I'd also throw in an exacta box with Triple Threat and Danish Dynaformer, who's just on, the improving 3-year-old and Roger Atfield. So I'd throw that one in there as well. But Triple Threat is the key horse in the exactas for me to hit the board first or second. 9th race is the Grade 2 Canadian, fillies and mares 3 and up, on the turf at a distance of about 1 mile and 1/8. And I went for a Grand Motion horse here, Hoop of Color. Horse is a Grade 2 winner. Hadn't raced since back in, I think, March, but is training really well. And Motion wins at a 23% rate off this kind of a layoff. And just always a big Grand Motion fan, and this looks like a good spot for him to get this one ready to ship up and pick off a Grade 2 win. I would use Strut the Course, Overheard, and Uchina, the 7, would be the horses I would use with Hoop of Color. But I think she's going to be definitely my key horse. Wouldn't single her, but I think she's going to run big in here. How about you?
Yeah, I like Hoop of Color as well, but she's not my top choice. I would use her, the 3-horse, simply the reasons that you listed. Santa Ana was a nice race at Santa Anita, but she hadn't been out since March, so that's a little bit of a concern for me. Although Grand Motion gets them well. Struck the course, the 4s, 2 for 5 at Woodbine, won the Grade 2 dance smartly at 1 1/8, working well for a 19% trainer. And the jock is 24% for that trainer, so Contreras is a go-to jock for him. I would use Enchanna, but my choice is Personal Diary. Taking a shot here, Vicky Oliver seems to slip up and get a win when you least expect it. And she trains almost exclusively for G. Watts Humphrey. And they ship this horse from Del Mar, and although Joe Talamo comes in to ride, obviously, in the Woodbine Mile, they pick up Joe, nice rider. Reese Blanc rode her last time out at Del Mar, and she only got beaten to JC maybe about three-quarters of a length by some really nice fillies. So I'll give Personal Diary a big shot here. I don't know why else they'd take a shot here. Vicky Oliver, again, surprises every once in a while. So I'm going to get a price here on the one horse. Use her with Strut the Course and with Enchanna and with your horse, Hoop of Color.
Grade 1 winner. I mean, it's on her best day, absolutely. I think she's got a big shot in here. This is a race you'd want to use certainly more than one horse. 10th race is the last one we'll talk about. It's the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile, the race that Wyatt Dan was supposed to be in. You got Lee at 5-2 in here that hadn't been on the turf forever. Grand Arch just won, and a bit of a surprise. Obviously, hasn't been out since the Breeders' Cup. So I'm not real over the moon on the locals, the U.S. horses. What I would play in here is bet both Euros to win. If you have to pick one, I'd take the 8, Mr. Owen, a 3-year-old who 2 starts back was 3-1 in a Group 1 at France at Chantilly. I would take the 7 and the 8, Mondialiste, who's won 2 in a row and getting Lasix, and Mr. Owen, the 8. Play both of those to win, and then I'd play both of those on top in the exacta, so it'd be 7 and 8 over 7 and 8 plus 1, 2, 10, which is obviously Grand Arch and Lee. But I'm going to bet that one of the Euros wins, and I have no intel on which one's better, so I'll just take them both. How about you?
Well, I did the same thing. Mondialiste is a 5-year-old taking over Mr. Owen, the 3-year-old. So that was my logic there. You mentioned the same horses that I kind of like, but I really think Lee is a terrible 5-2 favorite. Classy horse, but 1 mile on the turf doesn't seem to be in his wheelhouse. I know it's a great race and it's a very prestigious race, but I would be surprised if he won this race. Grand Arch would not surprise me, simply because 4-Star Dave was pretty impressive, especially since Ironicus came back and won last week. And then the back class of obviously just, you got to put him in, and Talamo comes in. I love Joe Talamo. So I would use the same horses that you would use. If I had to pick a winner, Mondialiste or possibly, obviously. I just think that they wouldn't ship him up here if he wasn't ready to run a big race. So that would be my choice there. But I would use the same 5 horses in the combinations that you mentioned. I would play against Lee. I would be surprised if he won it at 5-2.
Best of luck on your wagers for a great Sunday card at Woodbine. Remember, they're racing again at Churchill now. They're racing at Kentucky Downs. So a lot of great opportunities here in September while we wait for the Keeneland meet and the Breeders' Cup. Keep your Keeneland Select account fully funded. For Jim Goodman, I'm Tom Leach, and this is the In the Money Podcast.